This morning's edition of News and Views. We're going across now to be joined by Qoza, a spokesperson for the Minister of Home Affairs, where the Home Affairs Department has signed a historic agreement for asylum seekers. Sia, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking to you and your listeners.
Right, Sia, we're talking about a historic agreement for asylum seekers and looking at Home Affairs signing this agreement. Just some of the background to this and why this agreement was necessary.
Thanks very much for allowing me to even start with the background. The point that I'd like to make is that in 1998, when the Refugee Act came into effect, we had a system where we were accepting the asylum applications. And in the early years, we were accepting around about between 11 and 12,000 cases. Basically, these are people who would have run away from their home countries to seek refuge or international protection in South Africa. They would have been running away for either because they were persecuted personally, for their political, religious, or sexual orientation reasons, or there was a war in their country or region, or they would have been beneficiaries of people in those two categories. Now, up until 2006, we were able to receive and clear these numbers. And in 2006, the number increased to 53,000. And even then, we were still able to process and basically, when I mean process, we were able to receive applications and make a determination as to whether someone qualifies for a refugee status or not within a very short space of time. Unfortunately, in 2008, the numbers shot up drastically. From that 53,000, which was the highest over a 10-year period of 53,000, those numbers shot up to more than 400,000 between 2008 and 2009. And the system still had to contend with all of those applications. Now, when someone comes in to apply, the first port of call is a refugee reception center. We've got 5 of those reception centers throughout the country. There's one in Musina, there's one in Pretoria, there's one in Cape Town, there's one in Gqeberha or Port Elizabeth, and then there's another one in Durban. Once you get there to apply, a refugee status determination officer will make a determination based on your presentation and also on a few other things that they are trained in doing to determine if someone qualifies for the refugee status. Now, the system allows for people to appeal the decision of the refugee status determination officer if they are being rejected. So all of these numbers that we're talking about here, this 400,000 backlog, are people who have applied and were rejected because the status determination officer could not find reasons why they should be allowed status of refugee. Then they appealed. So that is the one part. That is where the backlog is coming from. We then had another problem, which was the law required that an independent adjudicating body called the Refugee Appeals Authority of South Africa had 5 members. But for any single one case, they needed a quorum of 3 people to look at that case. And because of that, you had high numbers, and you had very few numbers of people who were looking at these applications. The agreement now is helping us to fund the employment of additional members. And what has also happened over the past 2 years is that the law has been changed. Now, instead of having those 3 people sitting for one case, you're now going to have each individual person being able to sit and adjudicate less complicated and complex cases. Now, you're only going to have 3 people meeting when the cases are quite complicated. So the agreement with the UNHCR helps us to fund this expansion of capacity and also make sure that our refugee appeals system is much more smoother, so that we never have a backlog going into the future.
Well, this is important to understand because obviously this agreement has been signed with the UN Refugee Agency and the Home Affairs Department. But I think obviously with the delays, but also at the end of the day, this comes against the statement that was made by the Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, saying that anyone who enters this country is protected by the Constitution, by the Bill of Rights, and more importantly, taking a domestic and international responsibility towards asylum seekers and refugees.
Well, anyone who comes here with a legitimate claim is going to get international protection. The agreement is going to help us make that determination very, very quickly. Right now, if you do not have a backlog, if I came, for example, from a country where I was running away from war, and I come in, I would be able to know if I am going to get refugee status within a very reasonable period of time. At the moment, because of the backlog, we are not able to communicate those final decisions to affected people. So you do find that there are people who are in South Africa who've got documents, but those documents are for asylum seekers, which have been here for a number of years. We want to eliminate that. We want to make sure that everyone who comes in and applies for a status is given a response as quickly as is possible. So that is what the minister was referring to. That whilst we as a country are going to offer protection to people who qualify and need international protection, but we must make sure that we don't allow this. We don't open up the system for abuse, where people are going to come and make claims which are not supported by the refugee regime. Now, having said that, if someone wants to come to South Africa for any other reason other than being a refugee, they're more than welcome to apply for any of the permits that South Africa affords to people who want to legitimately come into the country. Those could be study or even they could be work permits. But you need to be clear and honest about the reasons that you want to come to South Africa, and we will process your application accordingly.
Qoza, thank you very much, as always, for coming on and for your time with us here on News and Views on Salam Media and providing us with that update. All the best to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and best wishes to you as well.
Tthe, spokesperson for the Minister of Home Affairs, with us this morning against this historic agreement that has been signed by the Home Affairs Department together with the United Nations Refugee Agency to try and eliminate delays and backlogs with regards to decisions on applications for asylum in the country. And that brings us close on to 10 a.m. towards the end of the broadcast for this morning on News and Views. And once again, for myself, it's been wonderful. It's been great being in the company of our listeners right across the country and other parts around the world as well, on Salam Media and also on Al Ansar, Durban, Pietermaritzburg, One Nation, 88.9 FM. It's been great having you with us as part of this morning's broadcast. And with that, I'm going to be signing off for myself and the rest of the early morning team here at Salam Media, the time heading for 10 a.m. And until we meet tomorrow, once again, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Tears in his eyes, it says, I am a Muslim. دين الإسلام ديني والعرض غير ديني محمد اللي هديني نور الإيمان دين الإسلام ديني والعرض غير ديني محمد اللي هديني نور الإيمان. If you ask her, why doesn't she cry? There's no one by her side. She's the only one that's left behind. Patiently she sighs, I am a Muslim. If you ask him, why does he still pray 5 times a day when so many others have strayed? Smiling he would say, I am a Muslim. دين الإسلام ديني والعرض غير ديني محمد اللي هديني نور الإيمان دين الإسلام ديني والعرض غير ديني محمد.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media coming to you